Before we get going, I'd like us to review what we did last week, especially if you weren't here, then you get a chance to hear from people who were here. So basically, what do you remember from last week? I know it's been a while, and yes, you can use your booklet. I hope you will use it. So the concept of today, and yes, if you look in your booklet page, it's 8 and 9. I tried to summarize what we're going to do in class, and so last week we talked about ethnocentrism, and you'll see that it's connected also, ethnocentrism and discrimination, that the concept of today is connected as well. And one way for me to talk about it is to use actually music. As I said, especially this semester, I have almost every single class connected to a song, and one of the reasons is that I do love music. And so I'd like to share with you that idea and see how it connects to discrimination. And what else? And we will talk also about minorities. And I know this might be a little challenging for Japanese students who have never been abroad or outside of Japan. So hopefully you'll still be able to understand what I'm trying to share with you regarding minorities, okay? So let's get going. So the reason, so I'm going to share a song with you, and as you can see, yes, it is about Marley's song, but it's not by him, it's not sung by him, it's sung by another group of people, and they are the reason why I want to share that specific song with you. So yes, I love music, not just because my mom forced me to play the violin when I was 6, and then the piano, but there is something in it that, I guess I'm not the only one, touches me deeply and also helps me connect with people. Because let's say, I don't look like I might like heavy metal, but I do. So it's a really nice way to connect with people who might look very different from me. Another reason is when I go to countries that I know nothing of, the first thing I do is I go to a music store, when they still have them, because nowadays it's kind of hard to find, and I kind of look in the local music, just to see what kind of music they like around. And it's really helped me feel the country. To connect it to the group, the collective, like a bunch of people working together called Playing for Change, I'm using what the main guy, I think his name is Mark Johnson, what he wrote as a way to introduce what Playing for Change is all about. And this is what he wrote. As a human race, we come together for birth and we come together for death. Meaning, since we are human beings, we are all born and we all die. Right? What brings us together in between, right? So the fact we are born and the fact that we do die, that brings us together. But what happens in between? So what brings us together in between is up to us. Right? So we will decide how much connection or no connection we will have with people around us between that time. And this is what he wants people to do. Stop and listen to the universal language of music and bring that positive energy with you everywhere you go. And that's the thing that I feel specifically close to, the universal language of music. It's really rare that when you listen to music you've never heard before, you don't somehow understand it. This being said, the first time I went to a no performance, right, in Japan, the music was pretty strange to me. I was like the rhythm, because I'm big on rhythm, the rhythm was like, how does that work? It seemed very random, like, when the guy hits the little drum thing, I'm like, so, okay, sometimes it can be a little tricky, but this being said, I've been 3 times, And since then, I got used to it, and I actually enjoy it quite a lot. I don't understand it, but it's still but true. It's true that the first time, no, I'm like, not understanding it, right, the music. So yes, sometimes it's more challenging. But for me still, I think there is something that we can share through music without using words. So Mark Johnson is the co-founder of the Playing for Change documentaries. Because it's not only music. If you go on YouTube and you type Playing for Change, you're going to see all the videos that they've made for the music that they've been producing. And the way they started, because as I said, they've changed, for 4 years, they had a few people and they traveled around the world. And they were recording people playing some specific songs. So they literally went all over the place. It's pretty interesting when you look at their map on their website. And so about 100 musicians, singers are included in that when I say musicians, and 5 continents, so basically just about everywhere. And their idea was that I will record this man playing the drum on, which song am I using? War. And in this country, I'm going to record someone playing the cello for war. And then in this country, I'm going to record someone singing. And then they put it all together in one song. So basically, the idea was to connect the world through music. As you can imagine, if let's say you're in the Congo, and the other person is in Moscow in Russia, and then the other one is in Brazil, most of them actually have never met in person. But through the project, they met in music, right? They mixed all the recordings together to create just one song. So the idea that there is the human connection and also the willingness to unite, because they knew what was happening, right, with the project. And another thing that Playing for Change say, I think it's on the website, through music we can understand our differences and create a better world. So that's why for me music is so important, and why, especially this semester, I have so many songs. So I will be quiet now, and you can go ahead and talk. So my question is, how important is music in your life? And you see 4 and 4 because I'd like you to talk to people around you, and then we will stand up and you go meet someone else, okay? So 4 minutes first with the people around you, then let's go and meet someone new. So yes, we're going to talk about race, and I'm glad because I have 2 other French speakers with me because I've never had that chance. Because there is a thing with race, the word race, and I think it's a language thing. So we'll see what they think. That I'm very interested very interested in what they think actually. And then yes, we're all going to talk about inferior, superior, right? So I'm a teacher, so I know more. I'm superior. You're inferior. Yeah, that's both. The crap that you usually hear, right? So superior, inferior. And as you saw, a lot of the countries that were represented were in a part of Africa, the Congo, that has had a lot of wars going on. So that's why they were like the biggest, the country most represented in the song. So yes, it's all about war. If you get that thing of race being superior and inferior, what you get is usually war. And then you've got Bono. I wish they had chosen someone else because he's already famous. He's the singer from U2, so they could have chosen someone else. But he was very active to try to bring peace in Ireland between the Catholic and the Protestants. So for that, I guess I understand why. With the concept of no more war, he was really trying to help with that. But on the other hand, it's like, he's famous already, it's okay, find someone who's not. So yeah, so that's when he starts singing, and he talks about the first-class citizen, second-class citizen. So the fact that in a country, depending on usually the social status or skin color or religion, you may be considered higher or lower. Right? So the concept of first class and second class. And another great word to know for country is nation, and you see it usually with the United Nations, right? That UN thing. They don't use countries, they use nation. And yes, we will talk about skin color and the concept of judging people by the color of their eyes. That would be fun. So all people with blue eyes get an S. It's silly, but that's what we do with skin color. So the reason I chose this song is because I really think it highlights actually some of the main, the main origins of discrimination. So again, it's partly, we can't do everything. I'm just focusing on a few of them. And that's what I was saying earlier, the philosophy or the thinking, which holds one race superior and another inferior. And this is when they're gonna, where I'm gonna ask Delphine and Kevin to see how they feel about it. But it might be a generation thing, because I'm kind of older than them, just a little. But I actually have a problem using the word race. And I know it's because of French. It's exactly the same word, just different pronunciation. We say race. And just saying it makes me kind of like, it makes me cringe. I don't know why, maybe, I'm not sure, it's just based on French or just how I was raised, but it's a word that has extremely negative meaning for me. Extremely. So much so that when I was in the US and I had to fill out papers, they always have that race thing. And every time I said it, I'm like, yeah, why do you use that word? It's so... And I never knew what to choose, because Caucasian makes me laugh so much. I'm like, Caucasian? What does that mean? It's weird. So I do have an issue with the word race for me, right? And I know it comes from my French background. So I'm kind of curious, Kevin, Delphine, how do you feel with the word race? When you said that, I just realized la race humaine, that one works, right? Yeah. So the human race, that is no problem, no taboo, no, we can use the word. But I like what you said, it is a taboo word. In French, if you just say race, it becomes, people start staring at you. What's wrong with that person, kind of situation. The human race, no problem. La race humaine, we just have the adjective after in French. Okay, so just a little insight into also maybe the language, right? Your original language might have an influence on how you feel with that word. And actually, I wanted to point out, someone wrote a very interesting feedback about history. And this is also something else that for me was a bit of a cultural shock when I was in the US as a senior in high school. In France, we study history from first grade until we graduate from high school. And I was a lit major, so I had 4 hours, even in high school, every week. So history is kind of a big thing when you come from France. I was very interested because 2 people actually wrote, I wish I had studied more about history. And I do believe that it is, of all the topics I've ever studied, it's always been my favorite, because it really helped me understand the world better. And the first one is my biggest friend, and this is I'm being very sarcastic here. This is not the truth, right? So Hitler decided to actually literally create, and we're not going to go there because it's awful, the Aryan race, right? So the people who would have to be tall, blonde, and blue eyes. So for him, that was the superior race. Everything else, inferior. Right? The areas where the best people, the others were crap. And so that included what we talked about last week, Jews and minorities, gypsies, homosexuals, disabled people, and people from African origin. When you say that a part of society is higher than the other one based on what they look like, you end up having lots of dead people. Something a bit more contemporary. Who wasn't born in 1990? Yeah, okay. All right, so, because I'm like, hang on, that's more than 18 years ago, right? But this is another genocide that took place, so for me, a little too recently, because I could watch the news back then already. And it's a country that is a former colony of Belgium. And so I guess in France we saw it a lot on TV because a lot of these people actually spoke French. So I guess that created a connection somehow. And what happened is that the Belgian government had decided that some people in Rwanda would be Hutu and some people would be Tutsi. Based on what? We have no idea, because they were all the same people. But they separated them. And what they did is that they created the Tutsi as a smaller group and they gave them all the power. So the minority in this case had all the power. Because for some, I haven't read as much as I wish I had read on that. And when the Belgian colonial system collapsed, so fell apart, the majority, the Hutu, decided to have a little revenge on the Tutsi. And they just killed them. That was it. So here again we have, this is a colonial system that decided the Tutsi are going to be superior. They will have all the power, and then you have the others, the Hutu, who don't have the power, and will have to have lower paid jobs, not have as schools as good as the one for the Tutsi. So a whole system was built on this. And if you come next semester, I'll show you how ridiculous the concept is, because they couldn't actually distinguish themselves. It's like, so are you Hutu or are you Tutsi? Because physically they look the same. Anyhow, I didn't want to show you the picture that we got from the genocide. It's just not a morning topic. Maybe afternoon I might have, but it was just too depressing. But you had all these people killed during about 6 month time period, a 6 month time period. And so you can see one of the cemeteries afterwards when the peace was restored. So that's, it's not just war, like in the song, but it's also genocide, right? When the higher level race decides to kill the lower level race, or when the lower level race decides to take revenge on the higher level one, right? So it goes both ways. And that's the problem, because there is a higher and there is a lower. So that's the issue for me. All right, so if we go back right to the song and look at another reason why there's been problems, it's connected to what kind of the joke I made earlier about the eyes color, right? The skin color. So this one is one that I guess we know, we've known for a long time, and. So this is what it says in the song: until the colors of man's skin is of no more significance, or importance, another way of saying it, than the color of his eyes. And the other thing also that you see a lot, and quite often the skin color is connected to this, even though when we, and I wish, José was here, because I know he's He's got a Hispanic background, so I'm kind of interested in that. But the ethnic group and minorities are usually based on the skin color, right? There's a strong connection, not all the time, because actually I have lots of Mexican friends, and it's very interesting how varied their skin color is. So it's something that to me is always like, this is kind of ridiculous, but then it's culturally speaking, they have more in common, right? So superior, inferior, why? The skin color, the main ethnic group versus minorities. So this is what he says in a song with the first class and second class citizens, right? Usually the main ethnic group is considered the first class, and then the minorities are considered second class citizens. And this is when it gets a bit tricky. Because we're in Japan, and we'll talk about it in a minute, minority might be a little tricky to clearly understand, right? For Japanese, if you haven't been abroad and felt like you are the minority when you're outside of Japan, it's a little tricky. So I'd like to give you time to think about it. So what does minority mean to you? I'm not talking about a dictionary definition, but from your experience, what you've seen, how you feel about it, what does it mean to you, minority? All right, so go for it. You've got 4 minutes. Please discuss with people around you. And yes, if you want to meet someone new, feel free to go around. So I'm glad to see that actually you did have things to talk about. But as I was saying, I'm not sure, right, for Japanese how easy it is to imagine or understand actually the tensions that may exist between. So a main ethnic group and then minorities. And then but also between minority groups. And I'd like to share that with you. And so the reason why I think it might be hard for Japanese to understand the whole issue of minority is that as of last year, so like a couple non-Japanese in the classroom, we are way more than the reality of Japan. Because in Japan there is 1.4% of the population that is not Japanese. And that number includes the military bases, the US military bases. So you take them out, and that becomes even smaller, because usually they stay, all together and they don't really mix. But, so I know right now we are way more non-Japanese than the reality, but if you did go outside of Tokyo, you probably noticed that you don't see that many foreigners, and outside of Nagoya also, right? As soon as you get out of the big towns. So I know the concept of minority is not easy. It's not something you see all the time, right? You usually see Japanese. But trying to share that with you and see where it takes us. So the movie that I'd like to share with you, but it is a true story. And there are three wonderful books that tell the story about what happened back then. So it's basically, as you can see, even though it's the actress, but she kind of looks similar to her, it is a white English teacher teaching a lot of non-white students. And she discovers what it is like to try to bring them together, right? And it's a super challenge, let's put it that way. And it takes place in California. And what else should I tell you? Yeah, you'll see what happens. And this happened a couple years after the Los Angeles riots. Have you ever heard of what happened in Los Angeles? In the 1990s, actually. So yes, some of you weren't born. Basically, to summarize, there was an African American driving on the highway. he got pulled over and beaten up by several police officers. Someone recorded it, even though back then, it was not a cell phone, it was just a camera. Someone recorded it, and even though you can actually count the number of times they're hitting him, the police officers were found not guilty. And that created a revolution, the least you can say. It started fires, fighting between the white community, the African community, but between the minority groups as well. So I believe I do have a piece of the news to show you how crazy this was. And it's just to give you the context of when the Freedom Riders was happening. So. Okay, here you go. I said that already, right? So I'll show you 3 parts, and I know that you might not be able to understand everything, but the good thing with that movie is that even if you don't understand the English, I think you can feel the tension, okay? So just hang in there.